Up on the show. Gong, the Olympic champion from the marathon, is banned for 4 years for doping. England lose Stephen Finn from the Ashes before a ball is even bowled. And rekindling the emotions at the Melbourne Cup with an Irish 1-2-3 in the famous race. Hi there, wherever you are around the world, welcome to Sport Today. Kenya's Olympic marathon champion Jemima Sumgong has been banned for 4 years for doping. She tested positive in April for the blood booster EPO, the 32-year-old who won the London Marathon and the Olympic title last year. After being provisionally suspended, Kenya's Athletics Commission has now banned her for unable to defend her title in Tokyo at the next Olympics. So our athletics reporter Ed Harry has been following this story closely. Ed, what's been the reaction from Sumgong and Kenya Athletics?
What we have so far is what Sumgong said in her own hearing, Nick, and that is her defence here. She said that the reason for this failed test in February of this year was she'd visited a hospital where she'd received treatment for an ectopic pregnancy, a pregnancy outside of the womb, and she'd received a blood transfusion and unspecified medication. The panel went back to the hospital. The hospital had no record of her ever being there. Put it quite simply, the anti-doping body in Kenya did not believe her story. She said she never spoke about this ectopic pregnancy. She never declared it on any anti-doping literature. She didn't mention it to the testers when they visited her, because to have a pregnancy like this, she told the panel, was a taboo. She feared being shunned by her community. She didn't even tell her husband, who is also her coach.
It's a shock, but this isn't the first time that Sumgong and Kenyan athletes have been done for doping, is it?
No, and in her case in particular, after finishing second at the Boston Marathon 12, she was facing a 2-year ban. The IAAF, the world governing body, intervened in that case and said that the injection she had received on that occasion to treat a hip problem wasn't actually an infringement of any anti-doping rules. But this was put to her in her hearing for this offence, that she, more than any other athlete, should understand that if you have taken anything, it's your responsibility to tell people, to declare it on the correct literature. But you're absolutely right, Kenya cannot shake off these headlines, and even if they take the odd step forward, like Paul Tergat, the great former athlete, being appointed head of their National Olympic Committee, you get moments like this which are very much 2 steps back again.
Ed Harry, thanks very much. All right, the T20 series decider between India and New Zealand turned into an 8-over shootout at the Greenfield International Stadium. After rain disrupted the contest, New Zealand elected to field and India set them 68 to win. Manish Pandey top scored 17 from 11 balls. In reply, Yuzvendra Chahal conceded just 8 runs from 2 overs as New Zealand came up 5 runs short of the target. So India win the series 2-1. Uncapped seamer Tom Curran has been added to England's Ashes squad after fast bowler Stephen Finn. He was ruled out of the tour. Now, Finn was sent home from the last tour down under, and despite not being first choice for his country this time around, he was ruled out of contention with a serious injury. West Indies great Sir Viv Richards has weighed into the Ashes contest, claiming that England will be like kittens without Ben Stokes. Now, the all-rounder has been left out of the tour down under for now, with a police investigation pending into a bar brawl. But Richards' main focus is on the cricket-loving Caribbean and restoring pride to an area hit hard by recent hurricanes. Austin Hailwood reports.
For the first time in 300 years, the island of Barbuda was completely deserted. After Hurricane Irma devastated large parts of the Caribbean, the island was evacuated to neighbouring Antigua. It's been 2 months since the disaster, and only now are people starting to return.
What I know of the Barbudans themselves, they are pretty much resilient people, and I know for sure that they'll be up and working as hard as possible to try and get back to their island and to get some normality back to the island.
Part of cricketing heritage in the Caribbean, Sir Viv Richards is perhaps Antigua's most famous son. He captained the West Indies between 1984 and 1991, when Caribbean cricket ruled the world. And in their time of need, with a fundraising match scheduled for next week, Richards is hoping that cricket can give back to the Caribbean.
It would be nice to see the ICC involved as well.
Yeah.
Because I've always felt that at times it is an organization that sometimes haven't really put its power or full power to its full purpose and use. But I think here's a great opportunity, and it's great that you mentioned that, to have someone like the establishing body of cricket itself, if they could lead the way, because I know for sure they also have the substance.
While the West Indies have struggled recently in the international game, cricket is still a major part of Caribbean culture, and Richards hopes the sport can play a big role in helping life return to normal on the islands. Austin Halewood, BBC News.
Young Irish trainer Joseph O'Brien's horse, Rekindling, won the Melbourne Cup, dramatically beating his father Aidan's Johannes Vermeer into second. Max Dynamite finished third. It was a 1-2-3 for Irish-trained horses at Flemington, and Paul Frostick watched the race.
Thousands packed into Flemington Racecourse in Melbourne, the venue for what's known as the race that stops a nation. There was early drama in the fourth race of the day when jockey João Moreira, nicknamed the Magic Man, took a nasty fall. He required treatment by paramedics and was not able to race in the Melbourne Cup.
Stand by, and they're racing in the Melbourne Cup. Rekindling tucked away on the inside midfield from Big Duke.
A horse named Rekindling would go on to win the main race, but in the early stages was settled in behind. Then, in the final moments, a surge.
Johannes Vermeer, Rekindling, Max Dynamite back to the inside of the 100. Johannes Vermeer, Rekindling wearing it down. Johannes Vermeer and Rekindling, stride for stride. Rekindling won the Emirates Melbourne Cup.
The Irish stallion victorious by a long neck, overhauling Johannes Vermeer near the finish to give trainer Joseph O'Brien a victory over his father in Australia's most famous race. Max Dynamite finished third to give the Irish a 1-2-3 finish in the 157th running of the 2-mile classic. It was a second Melbourne Cup victory for jockey Corey Brown and a sixth for owner Lloyd Williams. Big Duke was the first Australian-trained horse across the line, finishing in fourth. And for one lucky punter who backed Rekindling, $1 million Australian dollars. Paul Frostick, BBC News.
I'm honestly speechless. I can't believe it. Like it's a dream to even just ride in the race, but to come out and win it again, it's just, oh, mate, I'm lost for words. I'm honestly lost for words.
His prep went really good, and Corey gave him an unbelievable ride, and just so delighted for everyone and all the lads at home and the lads that were down here with him have done an unbelievable job.
Now, Rekindling's win has continued a remarkable modern history of success for overseas horses in the famous race. It started in 1993 with the Irish-trained Vintage Crop, and then, 9 years later, Media Puzzle, ridden by Damien Oliver, triumphed in the great race. Japan gained its first victory. 4 years later, Delta Blues gave their trainer, Kutsuhiko Sumi, a maiden victory in the race. There were back-to-back French victories, 2010, 2011, American and Dunedin. They were ridden home, Dunedin, the last one, by Christophe Lemaire in the latter race across the line. And the most recent overseas victory before today came 3 years ago when Protectionist got Germany their first win. I tell you what, you want to see more reaction to Rekindling's victory in the Melbourne Cup, just go to our BBC Sport website. Lots of analysis and reaction there, bbc.com/sport. But that's all we've got time for right now on Sport Today. Thanks for watching. I'm Nick Marshall McCormack from myself and the team. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.